is just as we warned. The temporary border controls introduced by Donald Tusk's government are nothing more than propaganda. In reality, Germans continue to bring illegal immigrants to Poland, including from Africa. I had received this information unofficially, but today I was able to confirm that the German police handed over 9 migrants to the Polish border guard who had been detained on Saturday in Germany. These immigrants were picked up by the Polish border guard, transported to a unit on Żołnierska Street, and yesterday by court decision, because that is where these immigrants ended up, they are to be transferred to Polish refugee centers. And here is the proof. Correspondence with the spokesperson for the Szczecin court, who confirms that this situation did indeed take place. Yesterday, the court ruled to place 9 people of other nationalities in the center. They were turned back from Germany because it was determined that they had crossed from Belarus to Poland on July 5th. So Germany returned them to us. And what nationality were these 9 people? 8 Eritreans and 1 Kazakh. It is likely that they are already being transferred to our centers within the country. They are not here in West Pomerania and will be taken outside our province. There are also other crimes, but they are not reported by the services subordinate to Tusk, only by opposition politicians. Yesterday, I received information that a theft took place at a jewelry store in the outlet on Prawobrzeże in Szczecin. A group of 3 migrants who looked like Pakistani citizens, engineers, raided the store and stole some items. There are recordings of this. The police were to be notified. And indeed, after sending an official inquiry, the police confirmed that a crime had been committed, but did not mention the nationality of the suspects. On July 10th in the afternoon, 3 men whose identities are currently unknown stole jewelry from a jewelry store in Prawobrzeże. The case is under investigation, and due to the early stage of the investigation, and in order to ensure its smooth progress, the CCTV footage secured at the scene must remain for the exclusive knowledge of those conducting the investigation. Question: wouldn't sharing the images of these individuals help the police themselves, the authorities themselves, to catch these immigrant criminals? So I appeal to the police from this place, whenever I request access to recordings or photos in cases like this, to simply send them to me, because I am not fighting them. We want to fight illegal migration. However, the police are hiding the CCTV footage and other services, also on the orders of Donald Tusk's government, and they are making sure that no one records or publishes videos of the situation at the border. This also applies to the police ban on private drone flights within a 500-meter by 500-meter area covering the border crossings. The Polish state will cope with our borders, and attempts at unauthorized action on Polish borders will be eliminated. If Donald Tusk really cared about preventing illegal immigrants from being dumped on our country's territory by the German authorities, he would encourage volunteers from the border defense movement to document the actions of the Polish border guards. But it seems that Donald Tusk's government has given the border guards different instructions. They are still to accept illegal immigrants transferred to the Polish side by the German authorities. At the same time, attacks on the border defense movement are continuing. On Wednesday, the authorities tried to forcibly remove a volunteer from their posts at the border crossing in Słubice. Now, Adam Bodnar has overturned the decision to suspend the sentence against Robert Bąkiewicz, who was convicted of violating the inviolability of activist Babcia Kasia. I have decided to overturn the decision to suspend the enforcement of a legally binding sentence. I have concluded that there are no grounds for Robert Bąkiewicz to continue to enjoy this privilege. Robert Bąkiewicz, however, consistently does his thing. Mr. Bodnar, drones will continue to fly, patrols will continue to be on the ground, and recordings will continue to be posted online, because we have the right to keep an eye on the treacherous authorities, and no matter how hard you try, you won't be able to lock us all up. Your end is near. A drowning man will clutch at a straw. This is an excerpt from a spot that presents the border defense movement as an organization of aggressive thugs.
Tak wyglądają obrońcy granic. których PiS wysyła na polskie granice.
It is being circulated on the internet by politicians from the civic platform. The border must be defended, not turned into a circus. And you? Which side are you on? In reality, this is a provocation prepared by left-wing activists, which was exposed by Dariusz Matecki from Law and Justice. Conclusion: immigrants who break Polish law by crossing our border without valid documents go unpunished. Poles who expose this practice are exposed to harassment and repression. In general, Tusk's strategy is as follows. He is unable to act effectively at the border, so he wants to act effectively against the truth about what is happening there. And to do that, he has to silence everyone who seeks the truth and reveals it in public. The security of future generations of Poles is at stake. And for Polish patriots, this is a stronger motivation than fear. Guys, now to you, soldiers, police officers, we are not doing this against you. We are doing this against the agents who are sent to us in Poland. Stand with us, and we will support you with great respect. And if we have anything, we will inform you so that you can help us reveal it. Greetings to everyone once again. We stand united behind the Polish uniform. A petition is also being collected for a referendum that would allow the Migration Pact to be rejected. Over 500,000 Poles have already signed it. July 11th, 82 years ago. On that Sunday night, Ukrainians attacked Poles, their neighbors, with whom they had lived like brothers for years. They brutally murdered every Pole they encountered, including the father of Władysława Kamińska, who told the Institute of National Remembrance, which documents Ukrainian crimes, about what happened to her family. Daddy said to him, "Sashka, why do you want to kill me? What have I done wrong?" He said, "You were a good neighbor, but I have to kill you because you are Polish." He shot Daddy in the head. Only half of his head was visible, one eye. When I came the next day, Daddy was lying on his back by the fence. Ukrainian nationalists, but also ordinary residents, killed Poles with axes, pitchforks, harvesting tools, knives, anything they had at hand. Pregnant women had their stomachs cut open and their babies taken out, and various animals were sewn into their wombs. What a tragedy. Bloody Sunday, July 11th, 1943, symbolizes the peak of cruelty of the Ukrainian insurgent army criminals. For us Polish people, this day is a time of reflection and prayer, of remembering the brutally murdered children, women, and elderly. It is also a reminder of Polish villages that have been completely wiped out. Sometimes a lonely cross stands there today. The victims of the genocide in Volhynia deserved a dignified burial, and their surviving families have the right to pray at the graves of their loved ones. It was cruelty difficult to describe, torture, genocide. Banderite units, assisted by Ukrainian peasants and the farming population, were involved in carrying out the crimes. Neighbors, the closest neighbors, murdered each other, not only in Volhynia, but also in other areas of the eastern borderlands. Ukrainians murdered 134,000 innocent Polish people. In the southeastern lands of the former Polish nation, this neighborly harmony was destroyed in the most cruel way possible. National Day of Remembrance for the victims of the genocide committed by Ukrainians against Polish people. Ceremonies have been and are being held throughout the country. In Warsaw, there were memories, but also an appeal, because 82 years after this cruel crime, its victims have still not been found. Our desire is to find, exhume, and identify our ancestors who still lie in nameless death pits, to return these remains to their families and bury them with dignity in a Christian manner. That is all we want, and that is all we desire. We want the truth, and we want respect for the victims, not only for the deceased, but also for their loved ones. Polish President Andrzej Duda wrote on the X portal. Only on the basis of truth, even the most difficult truth, can mature and sincere relations between nations be built, including between Poles and Ukrainians. This is one of the most tragic experiences in our history. July 11th, 1943, was the day when this ruthless crime culminated. Our defenseless compatriots, ordinary people, civilians, innocent victims, often killed in churches where they attended Sunday Mass, died at the hands of Ukrainian nationalists. They were murdered because they were Poles. In a letter addressed to the participants of the ceremony, he pointed out that from the very beginning, this crime against Poles was covered up. For decades, the Volhynia crime was shrouded in silence. Only the survivors, relatives of the victims, clergy, and distinguished researchers of recent history sought to document and preserve the truth about that tragedy. A truth that will never be forgotten. July 11th, the day of the tragedy of genocide in Volhynia, which Pope John Paul II, the Holy Father, described as genocidum atrox, genocide with particular cruelty. Never before in the history of Slavic states and Slavic nations has one Slavic brother nation acted in this way towards another. We want the Volhynia lie to be treated in the same way as the Auschwitz lie. Any falsification of history and the martyrdom of Poles should be treated in the same way as the denial of Nazi crimes. Much depends on the Ukrainians condemning the criminals who killed Poles, Stepan Bandera, Klim Savur, and others, and not making them heroes, as part of Ukrainian society still does today. The Ukrainians committed genocide and do not want to admit it. It is very important that these relations are not burdened with historical lies. I do not know if the Ukrainians will be able to do this. All in all, we have lent a helping hand to the Ukrainians during the war. But sincere reconciliation also requires historical truth about the crimes, the victims, the perpetrators, and what happened in Volhynia and the Eastern Territories 82 years ago. Over the past few days, we have seen a clear escalation of terror on the part of Russia. Every night, hundreds of drones fly towards Ukrainian cities. In the first 10 days of July alone, Russia launched a total of over 2,500 Shahed combat drones. Civilian targets are being attacked: shops, houses, schools, kindergartens, and even hospitals. I was awakened by a very loud whistling sound. I ran to my baby, and at that moment, there was an impact, and the windows shattered. Thank God we are alive and unharmed. I grabbed my son and ran to the basement. Both patients and doctors were affected by the attack. The maternity ward building was severely damaged, especially the part where the delivery rooms and operating rooms are located. We had women who were giving birth, and women were recovering from childbirth in the ward. The residents of the capital have already become accustomed to nighttime alarms. In the third year of the war, they have increasing confidence in the air defense system, which neutralizes attacks and cannot imagine life without it. What did I think when I saw the destroyed shop and salon? That I had to clean it up and rebuild it. Thank God everyone is alive. It's good that we have air defense. The heads of diplomacy of the United States and the Russian Federation discussed the war on the sidelines of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit. Rubio conveyed to Lavrov how President Trump views the latest events.
I echoed what the president has said, of both disappointment and frustration at the lack of progress in peace talks or in a path forward.
Marco Rubio assured that further, much tougher sanctions are one of the options to force Russia to return to peace talks. Meanwhile, a two-day conference on the reconstruction of Ukraine ended in Rome. Whether we like it or not, what is happening in Ukraine affects all of us. I think that is why we should be proud of the result we are all achieving together. We have jointly committed to providing Ukraine with more than 10 billion euros. The main goal of the conference was to mobilize political, financial, and military support for Ukraine.
Specific financing.
Frozen Russian assets should be used to rebuild Ukraine. But right now, we are counting on our partners to help us close the sky. We need not only more Patriot systems, but everything that will allow us to hold the front lines and protect our cities. U.S. President Donald Trump announced an agreement under which the U.S. will transfer weapons to Ukraine through NATO, with the alliance covering the costs of delivery. He also announced that on Monday he would make an important statement regarding Russia.
Truly a shame. It's very sad, when you talk about a system like that, highly sophisticated, tremendous amount of money, and they're doing it because they want to prevent death. They're getting hit hard, very hard.
The last few days show that Ukraine will not be left alone in its fight. First, President Donald Trump announced the direct transfer of weapons from U.S. stockpiles. Then the UK announced a significant package of military and economic aid for Kyiv. And Germany and Norway are ready to finance the purchase of additional Patriot systems. The famous windmill on the roof of the Moulin Rouge in Paris is spinning again, to the delight of Paris residents and tourists. The famous attraction, which was damaged in April 2024, has been repaired. The cabaret is visited by around 600,000 guests every year. In April 2024, the open-work blades fell off the windmill on the roof of the famous Parisian cabaret. The windmill on the roof of the Moulin Rouge had been spinning continuously since its inception in 1889, until it was damaged a year ago. Due to the Olympic Games in France in July 2024, the blades were installed, but the windmill only started spinning yesterday. A grand ceremony was held in Paris to mark the occasion. 32 dancers performed in front of the cabaret, celebrating the renovation of the monument together with the residents.